Hey, welcome to Wolf's Watch. Happy Valentine's Day. You know, when I was in high school and college, I worked in retail and for an organization that was very involved with selling Valentine's Day presents and delivering them. So the delivery truck drove really still chokes me up and ties my tongue to this day because it was such an experience. Drove a delivery truck for a number of years, scrubbed floors, did a lot of, did what needed to be done, worked in the warehouse. But it was always a big, impactful day. Very busy for a big 3-day blast. Now, I hope you're having a fun Valentine's Day. I always have a different set of memories because those formative years worked really hard. Watched my parents do the same thing, and it was an exhausting 3 days for us in that particular retail business. And we lovingly referred to it by Valentine's Day's initials. We would say happy. So hope you're having an awesome, healthy, safe day and enjoying it with people you care about. And congratulations to the Rams. Oh my gosh, won the Super Bowl, first Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium. And it was, did you get a chance to catch the game? It's just one of those days. It was a great day for the game. It was fun. I got some notes here, so I'm going to put my reading glasses on, if you don't mind. Got my $10 bifocals here that I use. But SoFi Stadium is an incredible venue. It's very rare for Super Bowl teams to be playing at their home venue. And what a venue it is. Did you see that massive screen in the center as well? I mean, the game, I don't want to take away from the game. And again, congratulations to both the Bengals and the Rams for being in the Super Bowl this year. Glad you had great weather so that it brought out a lot of people in a brand new facility. Wow. What a way to introduce SoFi Stadium to the nation as well. That screen, and I just have to admit, I got to say it, I was hoping the Bengals would win. I know that will give me hate mail and probably death threats and slash tires here in LA. That's how LA rolls. But the Bengals hadn't been in for so long. It was just great to see them there. So congratulations to both, and congratulations to the Rams for the win. It was amazing to see all of the great photos of, because I had a chance to do a tour of SoFi Stadium. And in case you don't believe me, I've got some evidence right here. But SoFi Stadium offers tours. And I'll tell you what, if you ever have a chance to see that, I highly recommend it. Because it is just unbelievable to be able to see the stadium when it's not full of people, for one thing. So here's the picture. If I can get this right here. Here's the picture when we were on the field. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We actually got to go on the field. So that's another one of the reasons that I highly recommend going to taking the tour of SoFi Stadium. We'll come back to that in a minute. But the whole stadium is just laid out so nicely. And to be able to see, you get a sense of the massive size of the stadium when there's not so many people in it. I mean, it's huge, right? Even with everybody packed in, it's impressive. When it's mostly empty, oh my gosh. And to see the VIP, we didn't get a chance to go in the luxury boxes. You probably saw the photos and the videos of, the VIPs, California's political class and VIPs from around the country that were partying in the luxury boxes. You see all their smiling white teeth and having a great time. It was an amazing experience for them, I'm sure. And on the rest of the stadium, it's not really designed for social distancing, but people were allowed to go and sit and see all the the amazing sea of masked faces, in the stands, was something that was very interesting because you can see all the different types of masks and colors and whatnot. And but they were still there, and they had a great time. The luxury boxes where you saw the VIPs, it's just like there is no luxury hotel that has anything on that. The Waldorf Astoria would be absolutely envious of some of those facilities, and they have private entrances and ways to get up to the boxes without having to go through the crowds of people. Protect them. Make sure everybody's protecting the VIPs from possibility of, well, who knows in today's environment. But anyway, Hope you watched the game, enjoyed it, had a good time with it. And again, congratulations, Rams. There's an iconic advertiser, an iconic brand that has over the years bought ads for Super Bowl over the decades, has at time brought, been seen where they have their name, their brand name up, that really made a horrendous mistake. Big issue right now, which you're probably very aware of as a business owner, is being able to recruit people you need and keep the people you need. Top talent has options, and it's a tight job market, so people are recruiting like crazy. So those that have, the best performers have the most options, as always, just right now. And it's been called the war on talent for a couple of years for a reason, right? You're in battle, doing battle to get the people that you need the best. So you got the right people in the right seats with the right skills at your company so that you can scale up, right? Without that, you're not going to be able to do it. And this iconic company did something that is it's such a rookie mistake. And it's the kind of thing that could potentially haunt them. It is a thing that creates a barrier for being able to get best talent to come in. It is something that paints a picture of going, top talent in a lot of cases may actually be looking for a way out, another place to call home, because of what this revealed about some of the things they're doing within the company. It's a great example and an unfortunate example of what happens, excuse me, if you don't have solid values within the company and leadership that keeps you pointed towards the mission, not allowing infighting. Now, larger organizations, this is a really big company, as you'll see in just a minute. Larger organizations have more trouble with that, right? The more people you got involved, the more internal competition there is. But as leader, you have to show, you have to model what's accepted, what's expected, what the values are, stay true to those within the company, stay on mission, and you need to develop the leadership team that does that as well, so that it does not start to create the kind of problems that we're going to see here in just a minute. And it's just something that shouldn't have happened. And it's an iconic brand, IBM of all. There's a Yahoo News report today that revealed something. What could have been just a typical, disgruntled employee lawsuit, revealed something from when internal emails from some of IBM's executives that there were, company email. The executives were sending us back and forth. Before we get to that, though, it's interesting because on this day in 1924, IBM got its name. Thomas Watson, who was running IBM at the time, succeeded in getting the name changed to International Business Machines. And check this out. I'm going to read this so that I get this right. It was originally called Computing, Tabulating, and Recording Company. Computing, Tabulating, and Recording Company, founded in 1890. Right, so that's what, 110, 132 years the company's been around. Renamed in 1924. When the company was founded, they were helping to count the results from the 1890 census. So that was where IBM got its start, and they moved more and more into machines. Business machines made the transition into computers, and on this day in 1946, I think I closed that. The first ENIAC computer was displayed to the public. 1942 was when ENIAC started, but the first public display of it was in 1945, 1946. So computers have been with us 76 years. The IBM name has been with us since 1924. The company itself has been around for 132 years. So IBM's been adaptable to that by being able to bring in a lot of top talent, right? They've had ups and downs. Every company goes through that. Every person goes through that, right? One of my favorite books says the sure trials and low spots. It has a phrase that talks about the sure trials and low spots in life. And it's just the way the universe works. Sometimes it's just everything's working incredibly well. There's unbelievable synergy, and sometimes there's challenges. The key is to not create challenges. And I'll tell you what, to me, this is really something where your values statement, your mission statement in your company, and your leadership prevent these types of mistakes from happening. And it's really, mistake is being way too generous with it. Because here's what happened. And this is Yahoo Finance reporting on a Bloomberg article. So this is making it through mainstream media, that in emails, IBM, here's a quote from Bloomberg. IBM executives discussed in emails how to force out older workers and derided them as dino babies, like dinosaurs, who should be made an extinct species, according to a court filing in an age discrimination case. Now, how do you let your leadership team develop that kind of attitude towards your team? Towards anybody on the team. I mean, who wants to work at a company where the leadership mocks anyone? Any group of employees or potential employees, any group of team members or potential team members. It comes back to in the war on talent, where you are trying to retain top performers. You are working to recruit top performers. If you have that type of demeaning attitude towards any group of people, how can you get them to come work for you? If your leadership team does, how do you get them to work for you and stay for you? So again, what are the values you're putting in place in your company? Now, IBM, it really seems to be a massive violation of their values from over the years. I mean, these are emails that came out. Now, some will say, there'll be somebody out there to go, well, you just don't put stuff like that in emails. Like, you know what? Doesn't matter whether it was written or not. That comes across, right? That comes across in dealings with people, and it has a huge negative effect on the performance of your organization. It affects the internal dynamics. Even if the outside world never finds out about it, inside, they're going to know. It shows up in turnover. It shows up in poorer performance. It shows up in not being able to get the right, the best talent, because there will be somebody, if you have that type of demeaning attitude towards, let's say, older workers. Let's start right there, since that's the case at hand. You really believe word's not going to get around amongst top talent in the baby boomer generation? The boomers won't hear from somebody. Talent talks to talent across companies. That's a great multiplier for learning and being able to keep people current in best practices. It's also always it can be a problem with information that you don't want getting out, especially if you've got someone like this, or a culture like, whether it's a person or is actually the culture of the company, it gets around. People talk. The younger people look at that and think, okay, when will my turn come? Right? If they're really thinking it through, they'll know. They'll be smart enough. The top talent, they'll go, yeah, I can see where this is going to eventually be me. Not having it, they'll move on. So it has a huge, huge negative impact on your top line and bottom line, because you're not going to be able to keep the top salespeople, right? As soon as they get an opportunity to move somewhere else, they will. So the whole loyalty within the company, and that just trickles throughout the company. It distributes throughout the company, diffuses throughout the company when that type of attitude is in place. And it's just unbelievable to me. It's sad that an iconic brand like IBM would have allowed that kind of attitude to develop amongst its leadership, right? We're not talking some frontline supervisor, right? I started out in factories, used to be called factory cats. And I started out in the factory side of big organizations, and it was a little bit more rough and tumble out in the shop floor, out in the factory environment, than it was in some of the exalted hallways of research and development, or the mahogany row with the executives. It's just a different environment. It's good too. I enjoyed the heck out of it. So if you're on the manufacturing side of things, thank you. Thank you for what I learned. Thank you for what you do. Let's come back to this mistake, though. This is a really bad leadership error. You have to make sure that your company values set the tone so that people know what they can do. It guides decisions. It guides behavior, even more importantly. And when people are not being consistent with company values, the stated company values, that needs to be corrected. And no matter how good they are in terms of results, if they won't stick with it, they got to go. Why? Because you're going to end up with a scenario like IBM's looking at now. if these are true, right? So these are all allegations that are coming out in a court filing, supposedly, according to the newswires, Bloomberg, Yahoo. That that was wording that was actually used in emails attributable to some of IBM's executives. Don't know. Haven't seen the core data myself. Here's the issue. Even if it's false, how big of an impact will that have with IBM? Right now, they're going to be diverting resources to show that this isn't true. This isn't who we are. This isn't how we operate. And they'll probably hear the usual apology. Well, this is not who we are. We're so sorry that this, to anybody that might be offended. Screw that crap, right? With your business, your mid-sized business or a larger small business, your market isn't going to put up with that. Your people aren't going to put up with that, right? We know in the entrepreneurial ranks that kind of behavior gets sniffed out. Sooner or later, something like this happens where people find out about it, the word gets around, and your business starts to decline as a result. You just can't do it. So your thing is, again, it's the values and tying that into the mission, and then making sure that you, as the top leader in your business, are consistent with that. If you go off reservation, if you go off track with that, and violate those principles, the values that you set out for your company, you're gonna have people looking at that and going, "Oh, okay, I get the message." They won't say a word, and they won't say. If you think people aren't watching, you should know better by now. You should know better by now. Don't delude yourself on that. People are watching you in minute detail, and if they see an inconsistency in that, that's a green light for them to step across the lines that cannot be crossed. Because then the company becomes something you don't want it to be. The culture becomes something you don't want it to be, and that will not provide the results that you are trying to get in the marketplace in terms of solving problems, which is right. It's how we make money, solve problems for prospective clients. That won't happen. And then also, it won't have the kind of culture that will attract the top performers that you need in order to be able to scale up your company. So, watch for stuff like that. And, to those that would say, well, don't write it down, because then you avoid, this is the problem, you're avoiding. And again, it's just self-delusion. Actually, better record keeping and enforcing it, because we see things like, we're sometimes I worked in aerospace, we worked on government contracts, and it's like everything that is ever written, all hand notes, all emails, everything needs to be preserved, buttoned down, put away where it can be retrieved for 1 to 2 decades. And with government records, it's just the same, because they're considered government records on government contracts. And we see high profile examples of where people are going, well, they deleted something, they lost their phone, they used a private email, which is, if I had done that when I was working in aerospace, I mean, that's like jail time. You couldn't do company business. You couldn't talk about government contracts. None of that information can go across private email, specifically because then it's a security leak, right? By definition. So it's also viewed as attempting to get around what's required, which has ramifications. So don't do that. The same thing applies with you. People see that and they're like going, "Oh, okay." So here, they will do dumb stuff like this, like we see in these alleged email quotes from this case against IBM. Do you have the resources and the time to do a course correction on that, to do, to fight back the media firestorm that could result, the social media storm that could result, the negative whispers that go around the industry about what it's like to work at your company, which then factors into the decision of people that that you want to hire, but also goes into the recruiting efforts that people that want to hire away from you, that want to, take your best, be able to say to your best people, "Hey, come on over here. We don't have that kind of nonsense. There's a bright future for you here. We won't mock you. You'll have it just advertisements write themselves on that." And so you really need to focus on that. Don't be an IBM in that case. It's really a rookie mistake. And, to allow that type of attitude, It's not just about what was written down. People knew about it. This is a catalyst, actually, that's a good thing because it's a possibility to get it corrected before it really starts to hollow out the company. Because this is one of the kind of things where if something doesn't put a spotlight on it where it's irrefutable, no one can argue. I'm not saying this is the case with IBM. Unless somebody, you got to have transparency in your company so that if someone's not being consistent with the values in the company, it's possible to see it documented in a way that you can have a conversation with them to correct it, or have your HR professional correct it. Ideally be you and your HR person sit down and go, hey, look, here's, this is why we do this. This is what we're worried about, and work with them on keeping their behavior within the company consistent with those values so that you can achieve your mission. So don't be an IBM. Have solid values that resonate with you and your team and stick to them so that you don't end up making yourself a pariah that nobody, because who wants to work for a company that calls older employees dino babies and that they should become an extinct species? It's a severe example, but guess what? There's a lot more people that are either not performing to their best ability because they're like, going to treat me like this? Fine. They do what's needed and not more. You can't scale up your business like that. Your competitors are eventually going to overtake you. And that when other people are considering coming to work there, they're getting towards the end of their career, and think about what they can bring. Right? There's a lot of knowledge and experience there. Now, we first want to admit that, old age and wisdom do not go together. Old age comes by itself without wisdom with some people. Some people get a lot of wisdom as they get older. Some people acquire a lot of wisdom when they're younger. Old age and wisdom don't go together. When you're recruiting, though, you know what you're looking for, and you can bring in a lot of knowledge. Here's another thing with with this type of mocking, how do we get these people out of here thing. Those older employees have probably been working with the company longer and therefore are the higher paid as well. They get, they've been long-term employees. They're getting paid more. They've got more vacation coming. So it's how to get them off the payroll. So this could also be a real short-sighted thing of going, older people don't know jack. The young people, they got it all wired. They have all the answers. And here's a bigger picture view. There are 5 generations in the workplace right now. The oldest generation is just a couple percent, what they call the silent generation. Boomers are down to something like 12, 15%, less than 20%, I believe, at this point. And I'm giving you these off the top of my head. You can look these up. We'll have more conversation about this going forward. Millennials are making up 35% of the workforce. Gen X is there's about 30% plus or minus. And now the younger folks, the generation that started 2001, they were born 2000, 2001, they're hitting their early 20s now. They're in the workforce. So Generation Z is in the workforce. Each one of those generations has unique experiences, unique perspectives, things they can bring to the table. There's a lot to offer. And this is a huge opportunity or a huge nightmare, depending on your perspective and how you approach it. You do things like, hey, we got to get these folks out of here. They're imagine the fact that they're paid more had a lot to do with it. But also to have, to allow one generation, people on your team that sneer at younger people, older people, just because of their age, for any other attribute of a group that they can't control as well. But in this particular episode, we're just talking about the age thing. You can't have them sneering at each other. You can't, any more than you can have somebody that's a more seasoned employee that's closer to, they're starting to wrap up their career. They're towards the end of their career. Can't have them sneering at the younger employees that are just getting started. And let me leave you with this. When I was fortunate to go through Toyota's training program. I wasn't an employee with Toyota, was working with an organization. We had something we were doing in partnership with them, and they allowed me the honor of being able to go through their Toyota system training. At the end of this 2-week training, I watched an 18-year-old gentleman who had only been working for the company for 30 days before he entered the training program. That had his first job he'd ever had right out of high school, right? He's only 18 years old. I watched him present an improvement idea, an improvement on how they did things there, to the president of the business unit. The president of that, it was a wholly owned company by Toyota. And I was thinking about that experience. Is that the way? And the president is flanked by his direct reports, and he listened to it, and at the end, he gave a nod, and that meant he presented an idea that had now been accepted, and his lieutenants, if you will, were writing down or making notes so they would know that, okay, this is what's happening. And then it also goes in this young man's employment record. He successfully, this was the graduation task for the training. He had to do this presentation, and do you do that at your company? Do you have that kind of onboarding? Do you have that kind of respect between the generations? So here's 2 generations, 3 generations at least between these 2 gentlemen, the president of the company and this young man who was just starting his journey in post-high school employment. Okay. And what a difference that made. They honored his ability, his knowledge. And there were other people that were new to that particular business unit that had much more experience in their careers. They were older, and they had gone through the training and did the same thing. So it's being able to bring the best into your, here's what it's about. You can't sneer at older or younger or whatever just because of that attribute. You need to have the best people in the right seats with the right skills, right, on your team. And you can't do that if you've got people that are sneering at other people. You can't allow that kind of behavior. So, and your key is your values and your mission. 3 things: your value statement, which guides the behavior and decision making; your mission, which keeps everybody pointed in the same direction; and your unfailing consistency with the first 2 of those, with the values and the mission statement. So, food for thought. Thanks for being part of Wolf's Watch. Always glad to have you here, and it's great to be able to wish you a happy, Valentine's Day. And I will see you on the trail.